Good morning, everybody, and I really hope that you had a fantastic weekend. Welcome to Monday and to another week, and welcome to my Monday messages. My name's Rebecca, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm a holistic health coach and homeopath, and I pop in here on a Monday, 10 o'clock, to share with you a tip, a simple practice, a thought even, something to help support us all in being able to make the healthiest choices we can to improve our physical health, our emotional health, and our spiritual health. And then if we can do that, we're much, much more likely to be able to live our lives as fully as we want to and feeling as happy and relaxed as we would like to be. So, welcome if you're joining me live, and if you're watching the replay, you're equally welcome. Today, I am going to talk a little bit about your first aid kit at home. And I think now more than ever, actually, it's so important to have some kind of first aid kit. Obviously, if you've got children, you probably already have some form of a kit. Being prepared and having everything that you need for emergency situations, it just gives you some power and some strength, and lessens the likelihood of going into a sort of panic mode and thinking that you've got to go somewhere or buy over-the-counter medications, or try and get into a GP or whatever. Anyway, obviously all of that's quite difficult at the moment. So as we had a few mishaps over the weekend, because we're doing quite a lot of work on the house at the moment, it reminded me of the importance of having that kit ready. So for me, obviously, the kit is all natural stuff. There'd be very few exceptions to that. And I just thought, well, I'll share it with you. Some of it might come as new information for you. Some of it you might be very familiar with. And if there's anything that you use that you find really helpful and that's natural, do share, because we all learn from each other, and you might be using something that I haven't thought of even, and vice versa. So I would encourage you to share what you find helpful in the natural health arena for minor illnesses and for accidents, things like that. So for me, obviously, as a homeopath, my absolute first number one is this 36 remedy kit. And for those of you who've been following me, you're probably bored with hearing me extol the virtues of this kit, but seriously, it's such a good kit. 36 remedies. They cover pretty much every eventuality in terms of bumps, cuts, colds, tummy aches, headaches, period pains, colic, wounds, shock, everything basically. So it's all in there. So that's my number one. And for me, because although I've got lots of remedies obviously in my clinic, for the rest of the family, if I'm not around, it's very helpful for them to just have access to this kit, which is very clearly labelled, and they can find what they're looking for easily, even if I'm not around. So that's my number one. And I'm just going to pull out 6 key remedies that if you haven't got a kit already and you don't perhaps want to get a kit at the moment, that you could just maybe have these 6 remedies standing by. So the first one, and particularly if you've got children, is a combination of 3 remedies, actually. It's the 3 top fever remedies. It's a little remedy, if you can see that, it's all back to front anyway. Little remedy called ABC, and it's a combination of aconite, belladonna, and chamomilla. And it's kind of a replacement for anything that involves inflammation. So wherever you would be thinking perhaps in the past of using things like Calpol or Nurofen, paracetamol-based medication, for headaches, tummy aches, fevers, all of those kind of things. ABC would be just brilliant. It works for the majority of cases. Now, not all cases, because that's not how homeopathy works, but it does work. And most of the people who come to me, parents who use it, absolutely swear by it and find it really, really helpful. So that would be definitely a choice for your first aid kit, particularly if you've got children, but not just for children. My daughter actually found it very, very helpful for, she went through a period of time where she was getting menstrual headaches, and the ABCs just halved the time that she had those headaches and really reduced the level of pain while we got to the bottom of why she was having them. So ABC, that's my first one. Great for earaches, toothaches, anything like that. The next one would be a remedy called Apis. And that's just fabulous for things like bites and stings and any kind of allergic reaction. So very, very handy one to have in there. I've got one client who was very, very allergic to stings, who carries Apis in her handbag instead of having an EpiPen. And I've had several cases where people have had a kind of anaphylactic shock reaction to something very dangerous. And while mum was waiting for the ambulance, then she gave Apis, and by the time the ambulance came, that anaphylactic shock had actually gone down to virtually being non-existent. So very handy remedy to have. Arnica is my next one. Anybody with children or husbands who do jobs, DIY jobs, working on things, or if you're doing it even, if you're kind of prone to being bumped or bruised or having falls, anything like that, then Arnica's your number one, because it addresses the shock of it as well as the actual tissue trauma. So these are all oral remedies, by the way. And the next one would be arsenicum. That would be my choice. Arsenicum or arsen alb, which is a brilliant remedy for stomach upsets, for food poisoning and stomach upsets. Anything where you're vomiting, you might have diarrhea, you might be a bit restless, sweaty, where you're processing some kind of poison in your gut. Great for gastroenteritis, anything like that would be the first remedy I think of. So that's the next one. And then very useful to have around the house would be a remedy called Cantharis, which is superb for burns. So any kind of burn that you get, then if you just start taking Cantharis, you'll notice that the pain will go right down. Very handy also actually for things like cystitis. If you're somebody who suffers from cystitis and you have those kind of internal burning pains, Cantharis can be very handy for that. As with any remedy, actually, all of these remedies have kind of multiple uses, but I'm just telling you the main first aid uses. And then finally, what I would pick actually would be a remedy called Gelsemium, which is a superb remedy to help with proper, very heavy colds and flu, the kind of colds and flu where your eyes are droopy, you've got shivers and aches and pains and absolutely exhausted, just want to lie still and not do anything. That kind of heavy cold and flu. So that's Gelsemium. And those 6 remedies would be a great place to start if you're starting to collect homeopathic remedies. So then branching on from that, what I have in my kit as well, my first aid kit, would be for wounds. So if you have got some kind of cut or abrasion, and we use some of this at the weekend, would be Hypercal. Will lead as the brand there, but you don't have to use that brand. Hypercal wound salve. It's an ointment which has two herbs in it. One is Hypericum and the other is Calendula. And they're both excellent at addressing tissue damage. So basically the calendula, which is marigold, helps, it's an antiseptic. It also encourages what we call granulation. It encourages the skin to knit back together and to heal properly. And the Hypericum is amazing for mending and soothing nerve damage. So particularly good for things like fingers and toes and those kind of areas that are nerve rich. And actually what I also have, is I have a bottle of calendula tincture, which is a herbal tincture. And then I can add that tincture to my own bases, so things like coconut oil or anything like that. But I can also apply it diluted on a cotton wool pad to any wound or sting or bite or anything like that. It just is, that's a staple for me in my first aid kit. Thinking about, sticking with wounds, the alternative, which I also have, is a big bottle of colloidal silver. Same thing really, helps to soothe wounds, keep them clean. So bites, wounds, stings, rashes even, very, very good for that. So that's also in the kit. What else is there while we're sticking on wounds? No, I think I'm just having a look to see what there might be. Yeah, I mean, the only other thing would be something like iodine. That's something I have as well, which I use for other things too, but I don't know whether you remember, if you're old enough, what we used to have iodine put on wounds when we were children. So lots of boys with yellow knees, if you remember that, because the thing with iodine is it turns your skin yellow temporarily. So often if you've got grazed knees and things, you'd go around with yellow knees, but it's a very good wound salve and healing agent. Of course, I have things like plasters and bandages and all of those, dressings, things like that. They're in my kit too, so have those. But what I make sure of with my plasters and my wound dressings is that they're not impregnated with anything, because a lot of them are these days. So if you're looking and you see that they're impregnated with something, then chances are that something will not be natural, obviously, and it may not be something that's suitable for the person that you're giving it to. So what else do we have in my kit? My husband swears by Manuka honey. So he is a little bit prone to things like sore throats and stuff like that. So, and if he feels a cold coming on, he will start taking Manuka honey and he finds it brilliant. You can also use it on wounds as well, and ulcers, things like that. Has multiple uses, so that's a good one for the kit. I pretty much always would have probiotics in my kit, and I would usually make sure to have vitamin C as well, because if somebody's going down with a cold, if they're not already taking those, then I would say just start taking them really frequently throughout the day, and you can usually head a cold off if you get it early enough. You can do the same with remedies, but if you're not using remedies, you can use those two things, because the whole purpose of all of these things is that they're supporting your body's natural defense mechanisms. They're not stopping anything. They're actually boosting all the things that you need to keep as well as possible and to get on top of whatever it is that's being processed at the time. Yep, what's the next thing? Oh yes, lovely. This is a recent discovery of mine, but actually has become invaluable now. Is an essential oil, which is it's by doTERRA, and it's called On Guard. And it's a blend of oils that are antibacterial and anti-viral, if you like. Very good at soothing and cleansing. And you can, in fact, they use it in a toothpaste because it's very good to gargle with. You can dilute it and gargle with it. So you can use that for oral health. If you've got any, what's they called? Ulcers, mouth ulcers, bleeding gums, anything like that. Obviously, that's about oral hygiene most of the time. So rinsing with something antibacterial, really helpful. You can obviously put it in an oil diffuser, and then the air is being purified. I make my own hand sanitizer with a little spray bottle like this, which is colloidal silver and this On Guard oil together. Smells beautiful. And it's much, much better than those hideous hand sanitizers that are everywhere, that just basically strip all the bacteria, the good bacteria from your hands. And not good for you, basically. So I carry it in my handbag. And if anybody insists that I use a sanitizer, then I will use my own sanitizer. And I have it in the practice too, although nobody's coming these days, of course. Other things I would have would be echinacea. It would either be a dropper bottle like that, which again I would have as a cold and flu preventative, but also speeds up healing. What's lovely too for sore throats is they do a throat spray with a little device on it that you can get to the back of your throat and just spray the echinacea onto that. It's really soothing. You can take echinacea indefinitely without any ill effects. There are studies to support that. And I find it just boosts health. It helps you fight off any kind of infections. Similarly to things like garlic. So you might want to use garlic instead if that's an option for you. Flower remedies I use as well. So I would have something like this little spray, which is a batch flower. It's emergency essence. It's like a rescue remedy, basically. So it's just another brand, that's all. And again, if somebody's in shock, if somebody's been hurt in some way, kids, adults, whatever, and they need to just calm down a bit and, come out of that shock, then yes, there are remedies, and things like arnica would be number one for that situation for me. But also things like rescue remedy can be very, very handy. Another thing, I have dogs and cats, and did have young children. They're not young anymore. And I live in the rural part of Ireland, County Kerry. So I have in my first aid kit always, I have this, well, it's in a big tin at the moment, actually. You don't have to have it in a powder, but it's activated charcoal. So I have it in a powder, but you can get it in capsules as well. You can usually buy it in your health food store. You can probably buy it in the chemist, actually, because it's an old-fashioned cure. It works, basically. It will be the first thing that any vet will think of for an animal that is suspected of being poisoned in some way. And it's the same with human beings. If you think you've ingested some kind of toxic substance, something that's disagreed with you, or you've got a child that maybe has, got hold of some kind of medication that they shouldn't have, or washing up stuff or anything like that, if you've got that kind of stuff in your home, then the first thing you should do is try and give activated charcoal, because what it does is it binds to anything that's potentially toxic, and it helps to carry it out of your body and exit through your bowels and get it out of your system as fast as possible. It sort of collects it all together. It's like a magnet. So while you're kind of thinking about what other treatments to do, if you do nothing else, then start giving activated charcoal. It can be useful too, just to actually get the bowels moving a bit. And it's useful if you're trying to come off some kind of medication or drug or anything like that, and just help it kind of come out of the body. So yeah, I'm a great proponent of prevention being better than cure. So I have to say that most of the time my kit is idle. It doesn't really get used because, fortunately, we're all pretty well most of the time. As I say, we had a few kind of skin injuries over the weekend, but most of the time, because we all look after our health and because our predominant system of medicine is natural, and it would be homeopathy first and foremost, none of us, including my 25-year-old and 22-year-old son and daughter, my parents-in-law who are in their 90s, all the people that are immediately around me, we're not ill. And that's not a coincidence. Part of the beauty of being able to treat minor illnesses at home as naturally as possible is that you're not using up energy and contributing to possibly getting chronically ill further down the line. So I would encourage you this week, this is my invitation to you, to have a good look at your first aid kit. If you've got a lot of over-the-counter medications in there, perhaps creams, salves, or things like paracetamol-based medicine, Calpol, Nurofen, all of those things, is there anything that you would be willing to substitute this week and try out something natural instead? Let me know if you're willing to do that. Because if we can reduce our usage of those kind of medications, it does help further down the line. I think I've already probably told some of you that there was a big study on paracetamol-based medicines in young children, so things like Calpol and Nurofen, and there is a correlation between giving those kind of medications to young children and them developing respiratory illnesses further down the line. So if you can use something that is effective and is natural instead, why not? It's a bit of a no-brainer, really. It's just being brave enough, informed enough to take those first steps and try it out. And one of the lovely things about homeopathy is that there's no ill effects. It's either going to work or it's not going to work. So if any of you want to talk to me further about any of this, then please do. And you can book yourself a free call with me using the link in the post with this video. For more information on how I work, you can do the same. And just do share with me maybe one thing that you would be willing to substitute from your first aid kit this week. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope you found that useful. Take care.